because they talked about Maddie Darlene essentially being someone who can contribute right away, but also, the fact that they did sign her to a 3-year deal, right? Like I think you mentioned that. Um, it's interesting that these are players that will contribute right now and will be the future of this club. So, I would rather that than, sell out to, you know, sell out your future for, the potential of this year. So, you know, sustainable roster building is fun. So, we'll go into notes here. I mean, it's not anything super groundbreaking, but it's always, you got to look at what we're being told here. I did think it was important. Someone asked Laura about having city ownership this offseason. It might have been, I don't remember. I'm not going to play this now because I don't want to hear the voice while I'm recording. But Laura was very happy about it, talking about how, you know, this club in the past, waiting to get really new ownership, they've had to deal with a lot. That locker room's had to deal with a lot, and just had to tune out the noise and play, do this, play their sport while also dealing with outside, an outside noise that, I don't think that many other teams deal with. But this league is there's a lot going on in this league, as you know. But to have that, she mentioned, having people like around, whether there's ownership around present, so that I think Lou mentioned that, having ownership around and present so the players know that, they're there and that they care is a big thing. Talked about Darlene. Yeah, you asked about Darlene. Yeah, I can see because my otter says Bella Munson. Um, yeah, she praised her year at UNC playing at the U20 World Cup, which you spoke on. Um, yeah, talking about the focus of young talent, and then even the other players like Emery and Jordan Ainsley. The one thing I think with the young players I want to talk about was Ainsley, and uh someone asked about losing Quinn. Obviously, that's a big deal. We've talked about that. But Ainsley's name was mentioned in talking about potential internal solutions for holding mid. What did you think about that and Ainsley potentially taking that spot?
I definitely think there's potential there. I'm not opposed to it in any sense. I think it will be a bit like throwing her into the fire, and it could be a rough adjustment. I think that's a really difficult position, and she's very young. She, was only with the team for the second half of the season. At the same time, if you watched Kansas City at all last year, Claire Hutton, who I believe was 17 as well, absolutely tore it up. She was one of the best defensive midfielders in the league right off the bat. Not saying that, that's necessarily how Ainsley is going to be, but I think that does show that young players can have some pretty immediate success in that position. And typically, that's not a position where we see a lot of young players. I know the Equalizer wrote a couple pieces about it, not me, but my colleagues,
Mm.
and just how good she was and how impressive it was because she was so young. And then obviously she was a massive part of the U20 World Cup team. So I think there's some precedent there. I'm I'm really interested to see how she does. I think we've heard a lot of great things about her, but we barely saw her play.
Yeah.
And good that she has a full preseason this time around. I think that'll be good to really get her in the environment and into the physical nature of the play and everything like that, get her adjusted a little bit. But, Lou even said in her availability, she thinks it takes like 8 months to a year to
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
adjust to playing in the league. And I'm not sure how much of the back half of last season is going to count towards that. So I'm really excited to see. Like Laura has talked so highly of her, and I trust Laura's opinion, so I'm really excited to see her. But I think I think there will be some growing pains. I think that's unavoidable with young players, and it's a position where it can be difficult because that can expose the team.
Mm.
But she talked about it. They have to give her the opportunity, or they're never going to know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
kind of might as well start giving it to her now, unless it really, really doesn't work out.
Yeah, no, I don't know. They like the whole club from top to bottom, whether it's players, ownership, the coaches, they all seem really high on these young players that they've brought in. And obviously they wouldn't sign these. Is it mean to call them children? Because they are children, you know what I
They are
mean?
children.
Um, they wouldn't sign them to these years, let alone like the 3 year deal with Darlene, right? If they didn't believe in what they've gotten, believe that they could develop them into contributors for obviously several years. Um, I'm gonna go to that and speak on Maddie because you asked her again. This is another Bella question. Um, you asked about being able to do different things offensively this year and try out things a little bit of a different attacking group. And Laura mentioned having Maddie and Lynn Williams bringing pace and power to really stretch out a back line. Um, I know you talked about her last week, with Darlene and having watched her and such, but I mean, what do you think about, having those two, I don't imagine I don't know actually if they'd play them both up top together, but what the Reign might do this year, because obviously, I mean, Jordan Heitem is still in the mix in the attack, and one name, admittedly, I forgot last week, and I saw this morning, and I was like, oh shoot, because she's pretty tall, is Anna Maria Trnogorcevic. Like she kind of gets lost in this mix in my mind, unfortunately, and I'm sure someone will get mad at me for that, but you look at that attacking group, and there's obviously key veterans. One of the stats that they put in the release is that um the Reign have the Reign's three leading goal scorers from last season in Ji So Yun, Jordan Heidema, and Veronica Latsko. Oh wait, no, that's wrong. Where is it? There's one where there's like three of the players that they have right now are all like the leading goal scorers for their country. Um,
Jess, Anna Maria, and G.
yeah, here it is. Yeah, lead their respective countries among both men and women in all-time goals scored. Um, So, that's again disrespectful on my part. But yeah, I mean, the forward group of Adamas, Crnogorcevic, Darlene, Haidem, Alatsko, Mondesir is again another name that, Coco came in and maybe didn't flash a bunch, but go back to what Lou said about getting acclimated to this league, right? This could be her year to feel comfortable in that regard after playing in that French division. Um, I don't know. I guess this turns into more of a not seeing Darlene and Lynn play up top, but what you think we might see the most of um, in terms of the forward group. Because again, I know last season I would always read the stat about how many different lineups they employed throughout the course of the year, right? So I don't. Obviously, it's tough to tell right now, but do you have any idea of what you think we might see the most of with that forward group, lineup wise?
Definitely think it's hard to say. Sorry for the jingling. That would be the dog's tag on her collar. Um, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Laura's pretty consistent about playing a 4-3-3. It'll be interesting to see if that changes at all because of the personnel they have. Does she want to play Lynn Williams as sort of the target number nine, or does she want to play Darlene up there, or is it Heidema and then Darlene and Emery or Lynn are on the wings? I think she has a lot of options. I think particular certain players like Veronica, um, and even Anna Maria are more solidly wing players. Um, Emery as well, I think. But you have, I think, some more central options than you've had in the past, and because Lynn has proven over her career that she can play pretty much anywhere along the front line and she can wreak havoc. So I do think Lynn, you know, health permitting, which is, a bit of a question as she's, towards the end of her rehab now. Um, I think she might be given a little more room to roam. Similar to how we kind of see Jess, or not, well, Jess and G sort of given the opportunity to interchange a lot and move around where they are because they're such, brilliant tacticians, right? You want them to find the space. And I think it may be a situation of let Lynn just find where there is space.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure Laura even knows yet. And yes, the dog is really trying to
Let's
figure out why
go.
she's really trying to figure out why she can't go lay on my bed right now. She's very upset about this. You're fine, drama queen. Hey, you're fine.
Cameo, let's go.
Come here. Come here. You want to show everyone how cute you are? No, you're just gonna wiggle on the floor. Okay.
Fair
Um,
enough.
so yeah, I think, she'll throughout preseason kind of figure out what she wants to do. And, she talked about unpredictability and being able
Yes.
to do some different things. And I think that's the benefit of some of the players she has is that they can interchange positions a lot, right? Even Jordan Heidema can drop lower, right? She loves to get ball to
Yeah.
feet and play other players in behind. So I think there's some good variability there to avoid what has been an issue in the past, which is every team knowing that they're just going to cross it into the box a million times and that being the way to score. Yes, it worked, but other times they were stopped because that was all they were going to do.
Yeah.
So I do think it provides more options than they've had in the past, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how they all mesh together, where she wants to put them. I don't think it'll be a set starting three.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we'll definitely see
That's like
some
probably what they
experimentation.
want though, right? To attack different teams in different ways, you know.
Yes and no. I mean, you want it's kind of, similar to the back line. You want some familiarity, right? You want
Consistent, sure.
those relationships to be built. You want those players to know how to play together. So it could go either way. Like I think at some point they'll want a little bit more stability. Um, but you definitely could see plenty of, per game changes based on who they're facing. We saw that a couple times, sort of formation changes to deal with particular teams. So I think it'll, maybe she figures it out in preseason and she's like, yep, this is who we're going with every time. Um, but I think she'll want to see in game what different combinations can do because it's going to be different than practice, right?
Oh
It's
yeah. Yeah,
it's
you get that
different.
game action,
Yeah.
it's just a different speed.
Yeah. It's a different
Um,
beast.
so yeah, no, that'll be interesting. I mean, again, I hate to compare it to men because the Seattle aspect is my whole shtick. It was really funny to hear. I think when Sounders had their last availability prior to going to Spain, Marbella, Spain for their preseason. They talked about the different options they have in the attack, and they talked about unpredictability. I'm just like, who am I hearing from again? I just hope it means, for both teams' sake, more offense. Because while the two clubs had different results, um, season wise, um, you know, they both ideally wanted to score more. So, and that's largely it. I mean, I did ask about Olivia van der Yacht after missing, I think, most of the season with an excused absence, and Laura said she's doing good. She's here. She's training. Really positive. You like to hear that, especially with something like an excused absence where you're not sure what it is. So, and anybody who knows Olo, that's she's such a bright person. So it's great to have that. Great to have her back, and especially as a player, right? Having what she can provide in the midfield, um, that'll be great to have her back. So, yeah, I mean, I think those things that we touched on were what stood out the most. You talked about the back line and having some consistency there. Laura mentioned the flexibility to have a bunch of different players that they could play at outside back, right? Uh, so yeah, I don't know. Outside of you getting yelled at, jokingly, I think those are my main things. Is there anything I missed that you maybe kind of saw at training and are like, oh, this is different? Um, or is it mainly what we touched on there?
Yeah, I mean they had a short like re-entry training day, so there wasn't a ton to see. I think it's just exciting to see the team back and you know soccer season and I love basketball as well. I love basketball season, but soccer season is one of my favorite times, favorite things to cover. I know. I also have my WNBA sweatshirt on,
Yeah.
incidentally. But yeah, it's just great to see the team back. I'm really excited to see what they can accomplish this year. And I think Lynn mentioned it. Laura's a brilliant tactician. She's a brilliant coach, and I'm really excited to see what she can do with this group, and also with some of the young players having at least half a year under their belt now.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, and I talked to you about this, I might have mentioned in the first show that we did with Becca, that Becca and I did, not you weren't there yet, was how many game like I know we talked about it, but how many games they lost or were decided by one goal. Like, I'm not saying that Lynn Williams is the answer to all of this, but I definitely think that, another year, a new season, a new slate with the current ownership, with some, stability in that regard and a real offseason with that stability. And it doesn't hurt to have the all-time leading goal scorer in the NWSL and someone that was described as, quote, a winner, um, to add to that mix. I really do think she will make that. I think I asked her that straight up, and she goes, "Well, I hope I can make that difference." And I was like, "I didn't mean to put you on the spot too much like that, but So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. The Reign are one of the like one, two, or three in terms of my favorite teams to cover, just from how we get treated and the personalities. So that'll wrap up this week's show. By the time we get to next week's show, it'll be the end of the month of January. At this point, we'll probably just talk about storyline stuff because that's like, what does Jordan Heideman's year look like after a disappointing season? So unless we get anything, of course, but I feel like we're just going to be looking at, like Bella mentioned, a bunch of non-roster invitees until then. So until we see you next time, take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, where are you going to watch all the away games for Seattle Reign FC this year?
Away games. Well, since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See y'all here.